Hello everyone! Today we are off to Neverland. That's right, it's a Disney Flashback video and we're up to 1953 when Peter Pan was released. So that is the movie that we're going to be discussing today. And if you haven't seen my other Disney Flashback videos, I have a playlist of them for you, which I will link in the cards as well as below, so you can check that out if you haven't already. But if you haven't seen these videos before, I'm going back through the Disney catalog of animated movies, the classic ones and ones that I want to rewatch and revisit, and kind of telling you the story and what I thought of it. So let's dive right into Peter Pan. Once again, the long intro credits continue. I'm curious to see how long they will stick around before Disney changes it up and doesn't have them anymore. The song playing at the beginning is Second Star to the Right, and there is no book opening in the beginning of this one as there was in some of the other videos. The story begins with a narrator. We enter a house in Bloomsbury, England. It's the home of the Darling family. It was explained that Peter Pan chose this home because there were people who believed in him who resided in it. The mother believed he was the spirit of youth. John and Michael thought he was a real person and looked up to him. Wendy was a declared expert on Peter Pan. They also have a dog named Nana, who is like their nanny. In the beginning, the parents are getting ready to go to a party. John and Michael are pretending that they are Peter Pan and Captain Hook. They use the father's cufflinks as buried treasure. They also draw on the father's shirt to make their treasure map. When their father discovers this, they tell him it's in the story, meaning Wendy's story that she tells them. The father gets upset with Wendy for filling the boys' heads with silly stories and poppycock. He then goes on to say she is growing older, and it's time for her to have a room of her own, which is a horrifying thought to everyone but him. He says it will be Wendy's last night in the nursery. He then trips on some toys, nearly running into Nana. It causes them both to fall, but instead of the family running to the father's side to see if he's okay, they run to Nana. This infuriates the father and he kicks Nana out. He says, "There'll be no more dogs for nursemaids in this house." Outside, as the father is tying Nana to a tree, he talks to her, telling her, "Don't look at me like that. The children aren't puppies, they're people, and sooner or later, people have to grow up." Just for clarification, because I know I couldn't quite keep it straight, John is the older brother and Michael is the younger brother. Wendy has Peter's shadow. He left it behind and Nana got a hold of it, and then Wendy took it and hid it. So Peter Pan comes back to get his shadow along with Tinkerbell, and meanwhile the kids are sleeping at this point, but Tinkerbell finds Peter's shadow hidden in the drawer, and then Peter ends up accidentally shutting her inside the drawer because he's so excited that she found his shadow, he doesn't realize she's still in the drawer when he closes it, so then she's kind of trapped in there. And as he's chasing his shadow around the room, he wakes up Wendy. Then cut to Tinkerbell, who looks annoyed, probably for being locked in the drawer and because she doesn't like the fact of another girl taking Peter's attention. Wendy is so excited about seeing Peter that she rambles on until finally Peter says, "Girls talk too much," and then rudely, "Get on with it," referring to Wendy sewing his shadow back on. He refers to Wendy as girl, like, "Girl, get on with it, girls talk too much." So she says, "My name is Wendy Mora Angela Darling," and he replies, "Wendy's enough." On a side note, I did want to let you know that Wendy is voiced by the same actress who was the voice of Alice in Alice in Wonderland. Having just watched Alice, I recognized the voice. The actress is Catherine Beaumont. Peter's original reason for being at Wendy's house the time that he lost his shadow was evidently to listen to her stories that she would be telling John and Michael. And he told her that he would then go back and tell them to the Lost Boys, even though the stories are about him. I didn't really remember this aspect of the character of Peter but he comes off a bit rude and arrogant on first impression. Wendy tells Peter that she has to grow up tomorrow, and he responds, "What? That will mean no more stories," and he immediately tries to take her to Neverland, nearly leaving behind Tink, which is Tinker Bell's nickname. Wendy, being sensible, says, "What would Mother think?" Peter responds, "What's a mother?" After Wendy explains what a mother is to him, he says, "You can be our mother." Then in her excitement, Wendy starts planning things and thinking about preparations and the things that she will need to do in order to travel to Neverland. But then she stops and says, "I'm so happy, I think I'll give you a kiss." Which of course sets off Tinker Bell because she does not want that to happen. Then Peter says, "What's a kiss?" And Wendy replies, "I'll show you." As she is leaning in to kiss Peter, Tinker Bell busts out of the drawer and pulls on Wendy's hair to keep her from kissing him. Peter then tries to catch Tinker Bell after what she's done, and as he's trying to catch her, John and Michael wake up. Next, we come to the "You Can Fly" song. Peter, Wendy, Michael, and John, and of course Tinker Bell, go flying. They land on Big Ben, and Peter points out, "There it is, Wendy. Second star to the right and straight on till morning." The same little saying I've got on my board here. This was a gift from my friend, and I thought it would be a fun way to use it in the video today, and I'll try to think of other clever things to put on it in other videos. Give me your ideas in the comments. Now we enter Neverland, where we meet the pirates, who are singing "Yo-ho, a pirate's life for me." I'm sure you're familiar with it. Captain Hook is trying to find Peter Pan's camp so he can destroy it. He believes Tiger Lily, the chief's daughter, will know where Peter Pan is. He tells Mr. Smee she might take some persuading. One of the other pirates is singing, and it annoys Captain Hook, so he shoots him. And I didn't remember him being so ruthless. Captain Hook continues talking to Mr. Smee about how Peter Pan took his hand, and that's why he has a hook for a hand. He also says how Peter fed his hand to a crocodile. Luckily, Hook can hear when the crocodile is coming because it swallowed an alarm clock and ticks wherever it goes. As Peter is returning with Wendy, Captain Hook calls all hands on deck and is very excited to have his chance to take out Peter. Peter, Wendy, and the boys are able to dodge Hook's fire. Peter tries to draw them away by having Hook follow him and shoot at him. He tells the rest to follow Tinker Bell back to his hideout, I guess. But Tinker Bell purposely flies away too fast for the others to keep up with her, so that she can get back to the camp before them. Because she tells the Lost Boys she has an order from Peter, and to look out for the Wendy bird and shoot it down. So they think it's an order from Peter. They do just that. They watch for the Wendy bird, which is simply just Wendy flying in, and they shoot at her. And I don't think she gets hit, but it throws her off course, so she begins to fall. And Peter swoops in at the last minute to keep her from falling. One thing that wasn't really explained and I didn't really understand is why all the Lost Boys are dressed up in animal costumes. Some of them are dressed like raccoons, bears. I don't know if it was just a fun thing or something to make it more Disney, but it was not explained why they were dressed up like that. Peter finds out that the Lost Boys were put up to shooting Wendy by Tinker Bell, and he banishes her. He originally banishes her for an entire year, but then Wendy pipes in saying she thinks it's a bit harsh, so he changes it to a week. Later, Peter sends the Lost Boys to catch some Indians and assigns John as the leader. They sing the "Following the Leader" song, which you've probably heard, but it's the one that's "We're following the leader, the leader, the leader." So they're singing that as they're going to catch some Indians. That had me wondering if the song originated in this movie or if it was already a popular and known song that Disney just used for this movie. This movie is definitely a product of its time, especially with the stereotypes of Native Americans or Indians. I watched it on Disney Plus, and Disney included a disclaimer at the beginning of the movie because of this fact. But the Lost Boys get captured by the Indians, but evidently it's a game that they play, so they aren't really enemies. It's a game that they play where each group captures the other and then they let them go or set each other loose. The chief tells them, this time I'm not setting them loose. This is because he thinks that they are the ones who captured Tiger Lily. He says that if she doesn't return by nightfall, they will be burned at the stake. Next, we cut to Peter and Wendy, who have gone to Mermaid Lagoon. And all the mermaids are happy and excited to see Peter, and they want to hear about his adventures. Then they see Wendy, and don't really like her, so they try to pull her under the water and are splashing her, and Peter's just laughing until Wendy tries to defend herself. Peter stops her and says they were only playing around, right girls? And then one mermaid says, yeah, sure, while another says in a sweet and innocent voice, we were only trying to drown her. It seems that every female in this movie that we've witnessed so far anyway, the mermaids, Tinkerbell, are very jealous of Wendy and infatuated with Peter. Peter sees Hook approaching in his boat, a rowboat, and all the mermaids, once they hear word of Hook being nearby, run and hide. Peter sees that Hook has captured Tiger Lily, and the crocodile is tailing behind Captain Hook. Peter then follows them to see what they are up to. Hook tells Tiger Lily, tell me Pan's location and I'll let you go. If not, the waters will rise and you will drown. So basically she's out of the boat now. They've got her in this area where the water's going to slowly rise and she's tied up so she can't go anywhere. So he's basically telling her, let me know the location or I'll leave you here and you'll drown. Peter then disguises his voice, pretending to be the great spirit of the seawater. Hook leaves to go and check it out, and while he's gone, Peter impersonates Hook's voice and tells Smee to release the princess. Smee begins to when the real Hook comes back and stops him. Hook then figures out that it's Peter and almost gets him until Wendy shouts and warns Peter. Peter toys with Hook and is kind of showing off because he keeps saying, watch this, Wendy. You can tell he really gets a kick out of messing with Captain Hook. The crocodile comes along during their back and forth and nearly eats Captain Hook until Smee saves him. Then Wendy ends up having to remind Peter about Tiger Lily, and he rescues her just before the water is above her head. Meanwhile, back at the pirate ship, Captain Hook has a terrible headache after being nearly attacked by the crocodile, and Smee is only making matters worse. Then in passing, Smee mentions that Peter Pan banished Tinkerbell. Captain Hook then gets an idea to try to use Tinkerbell to get to Peter Pan. He says, a jealous female can be tricked into anything. He plans to convince her that they are eager to help her, and persuade her to show him Pan's location. He then sends Smee to go and get Tinkerbell. Because Peter Pan is able to return Tiger Lily to the chief, he lets the Lost Boys go. Then the chief and his people sing a song about the Indians and what made the red man red. Again, a product of its time and not politically correct. John and Michael take part in the shenanigans, chanting and dancing and painting their faces. But Wendy just keeps getting told to go and get more firewood by one of the Indians, which she doesn't want to do, and instead says, I'm going home. Now, as I was writing this script, after watching the movie, it made me think of something. If in Neverland you are never supposed to grow up, then how are there adult Indians and how are the pirates adults? Why haven't they stayed forever children? The only way that could happen, I would think, is if they came there after they were already adults, so therefore they stay the age they are when they're the adults. But I don't know if that fits because I thought once you grew up you couldn't go back to Neverland, so they don't really explain that. Maybe you're just not supposed to think about it, but yeah, I wasn't too sure about that part. Smee is able to trap Tinkerbell and takes her back to Hook's ship. Hook is telling her that he admits defeat and will leave the island tomorrow. He goes on to say, what a dangerous business Peter Pan bringing Wendy to the island, which of course irritates Tinkerbell. Hook says, rumor has it she's come between you and Peter Pan, and Tinkerbell cries and is very upset. But as Hook goes on, he says, we mustn't blame him. It's that Wendy. Tinkerbell agrees. Hook suggests to Tinkerbell that they kidnap Wendy, and then they could take her with them when they leave the island, so she won't be in the way. Tinkerbell likes this idea. Hook says, "We must go and get her," and he's acting like they're preparing the ship to go and get Wendy when Smee says, "But we don't know where Peter Pan lives." Then Hook, playing dumb, says, "Oh my goodness, you're right, we don't know." Tinkerbell, falling right into their trap, says, "I know." And she says, "I could show you the way." Hook says, "Why, I never thought of that." Tink then maps it out for them, and Smee is writing it down. She stops as she is showing them and says that he mustn't hurt Peter. Specifically, not to lay a finger or a hook on him. Hook promises for whatever it's worth. Then as soon as he has the location, he locks Tinkerbell away. Back to Wendy and the Lost Boys. Wendy gets tired of all the play and roughhousing and is telling her brothers they need to go home in the morning. Then she sees that they don't really remember their mother or understand what a mother is. Already this is happening to them. So Wendy sings a song about it, and all the Lost Boys listen, including some of the pirates who are waiting outside. They get emotional, and the only one who is unaffected is Peter. Then Michael and John want to go home to their mother, and the Lost Boys want to join. Peter says, "Once you're grown, you can never come back." See, that's what I don't get. After they all leave, he says to himself, "They'll be back." And they head outside, and as soon as they do, the pirates catch them all. Smee turns to Hook and says, "Wouldn't it be more humane just to slit his throat?" Of course, that's the humane way. Hook says, "Yes, but I promised I wouldn't lay a finger or a hook on him. And Captain Hook always keeps his word." So he lowers a bomb into Peter's home. On the ship, the pirates are singing "Yo-ho, a pirate's life for me," and they ask the Lost Boys to join them and become pirates or else walk the plank. And the boys are about to join the pirates when Wendy stops them, saying, "We won't walk the plank. Peter will save us." Then the captain tells her about the little present he left for him. Tinkerbell, being locked up inside, overhears this and busts free so that she can save Peter. Once she gets there, she tries to fly the package away from him before it explodes. Once it does explode, the pirates see the explosion go off and assume Peter is dead. Peter is trying to save Tinkerbell, who was holding the package when it exploded, when she tells him about Wendy and the Lost Boys being captured by the pirates. He tells her, "I have to save you, Tink. Don't go out," meaning her light. "Don't you know you mean more to me than anything?" Later, the pirates make Wendy walk the plank first, but fortunately, Peter gets there in time to catch her. Because there was no splash, the pirates don't understand. And because Hook gets irritated at them, he just throws one of them overboard and says, "I'll give you a splash." After some fighting back and forth between Peter and Hook, Hook says, "You're a coward. Let's fight man to man, no flying." Eventually, Peter beats Hook even without flying. Hook begs for mercy, and Peter says, "Say you're a codfish." So Hook does, and Peter says, "You are free to go and never return." But then Hook goes back on their agreement and tries to attack Peter, but falls into the water in the process and gets chased by the crocodile. Peter takes over Hook's ship and tells Wendy, "We are sailing to London," which makes Wendy very happy. A couple of things I want to mention. One, I had forgot about Peter's crowing when he gets excited. He does the thing when he's excited. Two, I thought that Tinkerbell had to be saved to get her magic back by clapping or something like that, but I think I'm remembering another version. I think that might have been the live action Mary Martin version. Back in London, the mother and father come home from the party. The father has decided to let Wendy stay in the nursery, after he's had some time to calm down. But when talking to Wendy, she tells them, "After being in Neverland, I'm ready to grow up." Wendy's telling the stories of what they just experienced to her parents, and her father especially cannot quite understand or believe it. Then Wendy points out Peter flying the ship in the sky. It kind of looks like a cloud ship. Her parents see it. And the father says, "I have the strangest feeling I've seen that ship before. A long time ago, when I was very young. The movie ends with the ship floating away and the You Can Fly reprise. I did enjoy rewatching this one. Like the others, it had been some time since I had seen this one. I remembered the characters and general story, but not all of the details that I've shared with you today. This one didn't seem to have as much of a moral to it as the others, such as Pinocchio, Snow White. They seem to have some very in-your-face morals, whereas this one, not so much. Maybe it's just that we all have to grow up sometime, but also to keep some of that inner child alive. But I hope you enjoyed seeing this episode of Disney Flashback. Do you like Peter Pan? Let me know in the comments. Give this a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I will see you soon for another video, and I hope you have a magical day.